Have you felt like you and your wife are often on completely different pages? Like you can never agree on the same thing, whether it's the family budget or how to parent the kids or, what you're going to do on holidays. I mean, you just can never seem to get on. Like you feel like you argue far more than you actually have healthy conversations, and you feel like she's constantly nagging you about all the things that you need to be doing or the things that you didn't do or the things that you need to stop doing, and she's just constantly on and on and on about you and reminding you of all the stuff that she does around the house and with the kids. And then you feel the need to respond with, well, hey, I'm working 50 plus hours a week to provide for this family so that you have a house to live in, so that you have kids to raise and to provide for this family and whatnot. And it just creates this cycle of conflict. And if you're anything like me, probably, I'm guessing, you don't like it at all. And you don't want it to continue this way, but you're kind of unsure as to, how do I navigate this? How do I stop the drift of us separating further and further apart and getting, on different pages more and more, and start to turn the tide and bring this thing back together, this marriage relationship back together, where we can be close again. And what I found is, in this cycle of conflict that often emerges in marriage, it's a result of two natural tendencies based on the differences between men and women. See, women often have a tendency to control. Now, that sounds a little bit harsh, I know, but it's true. Women's natural tendency is to become controlling. So they want to take control. When things are not getting done, they want to take control and make sure they get done. When things are not getting done to the standard that they want them to get done, they'll take control and make sure that they get done. What that does, though, is that it enables and perpetuates the man's natural tendency, which is, especially when it comes to things at home, is to remain passive. Especially when it comes to relational things, like working on a marriage, working on parenting. These are relational things where women take control and men remain passive and unengaged. So we're back to this, take the initiative, guys, and don't remain passive at all. See, and so the natural tendency for guys, though, right, is to, we want to keep things simple, and we want to keep things safe, and we want to keep the peace, and we'd rather sweep things under the rug and just let it all blow over than actually work on stuff. Whereas women want to control and make sure resolution is reached and make sure things are clear and concise. But the reason I call it a cycle of conflict is because these two things, control for the women and passivity for the guys, actually fuel each other and feed each other. This is why it's so destructive to a marriage relationship. Because the more the woman controls and takes control of things, the easier it is for the guy to become more disengaged and to become more distant and to become more passive, because he's not needed. He doesn't need to do anything because the wife has everything under control. Likewise, the more the man remains passive or initiates with passivity, things remain undone, things remain unresolved, and the woman doesn't deal with that or can't handle that very well, so she controls more and takes more and does more, and the two just continue to feed each other, and this cycle of conflict spirals further and further and further downhill. It's this wicked thing that's not nice, it's not pleasant, and I'm guessing that really you don't want to do it. So how do we break the cycle? I mean, how do we get out of this? I want to talk specifically, guys, to you. Take some initiative. And this is like the exact opposite to passivity, right? This is taking the initiative, taking a step, taking action, and doing something about it. And I want to help you with that. One of the best ways, I think, for us to do that is to initiate a conversation. Now, this is the kind of conversation where, if it goes well, your wife will love you and thank you and respect you so much for doing it. So let me encourage you, it's not going to be easy, but it's totally going to be worth it. And I want to give you an outline to the conversation. It's basically 4 different talking points for you to talk around to get to this issue, right? So I would say, schedule a date maybe, organize the babysitter. If you take all of that stuff on, that already is communicating a whole lot of love and value and respect to your wife, right? And schedule a date, go to a restaurant or a cafe, whatnot, sit down and have this conversation with your wife where you can be uninterrupted and just be totally focused on her. This will be a great way to turn the tide and to stop the drift and bring you closer together. Start first by talking about your own fears. This requires us being a little self-reflective, a little vulnerable, a little transparent. But if you can't do it with your wife, who else can you do it with, right? I mean, so start by leading with your fears. Those things that you're afraid of in doing a conversation like this or having a conversation like this. I mean, is it that you're afraid that it's not going to help and nothing's good is going to come from it? Are you afraid that maybe she'll misinterpret you as trying to manipulate? And whatever things that you're afraid of, maybe it's that you're afraid you won't even be able to communicate it clearly enough and actually convey genuinely your intent with the conversation. Whatever those fears might be that you have with doing a conversation like this or having a conversation like this, just name them and speak them out loud. Start the conversation with that way. See what that does? It creates an openness between you and your wife. It'll help open her up and remove some of the defensiveness and barriers so that the conversation can actually move forward quite well. The second thing then would be to share your own disappointment and your own frustration about the current state of your marriage. This cycle of conflict, or whatever it might be. But don't do it in a way that's blaming, right? You don't want to blame your wife. You don't want to blame her for your feelings. You want to take responsibility for your own feelings and just let her know, I'm not happy with the way things are and I want them to be different. And then third step in the conversation or third talking piece in the conversation would be to share this lesson that I've just talked about, this cycle of conflict, how women have this tendency to control and men have this tendency to remain passive, and how those then fuel each other. And talk about that with your wife. Share that with her and talk about then how that might be true in your own relationship. And then, final step, start brainstorming and talking together about some ways in which you might be able to break this cycle and break free from these tendencies to control and your tendency to remain passive and unengaged. I mean, how could you break free from that? How could you move forward in your relationship and start coming back together rather than drifting further and further apart? So that's the 4 steps to a conversation that I really think would help you break this cycle of conflict. Lead with your fears. And then share your own desire for things to be different. Share this lesson about the cycle of conflict, and then brainstorm ways to move forward towards health together. And I'm convinced that that'll be a great step forward in the right direction and resolve this tension, this conflict where you feel like you're constantly fighting and you're on different pages, and it'll bring you together and you'll again experience genuine love and intimacy in your marriage. And that's my hope for you and for your wife. Hi there, my name's Clint, and if you found this video that you just watched helpful or valuable, then go to the website below where you'll find a whole video series dealing with the pressures and collisions that we often experience between work and family and ourselves, and how to stay, healthy and all of that. And we've identified 9 of the most common collisions where, work and family collide, and how to deal with some of those things. We'll talk about how to become better at what you do in your job so that you earn those promotions and make extra money. We'll talk about how to have an open and honest and loving relationship with your wife that actually makes it feel like she's on the same team as you rather than constantly fighting and working against you, and how to have a fun-filled relationship with your kids that's full of warmth and laughter and great memories, while also staying healthy as a person and enjoying good times with your mates and with your friends as a person as well. So go to the website below and you'll find out more about it.